Hi, welcome to Virtualized Geek Tech Talk, episode 35. This is Keith Townsend with a discussion on software defined networking and if software defined networking is ready for the enterprise. We talked a bit about OpenStack and whether or not OpenStack was ready for the enterprise. And I think some of the same questions I asked in that video and that blog post apply to software defined networking. So, if we compare to kind of the pioneers of software defined networking and who's really bought into software defined networking in a really big way, we see the obvious advantages. So it's like when we look at OpenStack and we see the advantages of OpenStack for a Rackspace or HP or any other large cloud provider or anyone who's building a cloud, a web 2.0 or a cloud aware app, some type of new app. OpenStack OpenStack makes sense for development heavy organizations. The same question I think can be applied to software defined networking. When we look at the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, who these companies control the entire stack of their applications. So when you look at big homogeneous applications such as Facebook, Gmail, Google Plus, Google Apps, Google Search, SDN makes sense. Google can take their network, build their own hardware, install their software defined networking code directly onto those switches, uh, have controllers that they completely control the entire stack to, and then have that, and then give those exposed APIs to their developers to develop really cool redundant applications that really understand and take advantage of the network, that are extremely portable, that gives Google the ability to have geographically dispersed data centers, look as just one data center. So all of this redundancy is thought up from is put together from the ground up, from the networking all the way up to the application, and is enabled because of software defined networking. Google, Facebook, they're able to do this because of their scale and their line of business. So software defined networking makes sense from an operations and a business perspective for a company like for a company like Google or Facebook. Now, to be fair, I asked the question that if OpenStack isn't really a great solution for the enterprise today because it's not a product, is software defined networking, even though we have solutions like NSX, Juniper supported Open Contrail, their product side SDN solutions, is it really a solution that's ready for the enterprise? So, let's talk about a specific use case for software defined networking. And it's a security use case that I don't know if products really exist for this in the software defined networking space, but it's a use case nonetheless that me and a couple of people talked about. That's a real requirement. So when you think about the security threats that organizations face today, one of them is the internal threat. And no longer can we kind of create networks where we have trusted nodes, where node one is on the same network with node two, and since they're on the same network, there's an implicit trust. Now, we have this thing where we have to have security in depth. So the thought process is when node one is compromised, how can we limit the damage to just node one and stop node one from getting further unauthorized access to another node on the same physical network? And able to do these types of things, we need to be able to have tools or give our security teams tools that allow them to monitor traffic between nodes on the same network. So, from a practical perspective, if we think about it from a virtual network perspective, we have these tools uh, in VMware in the form of vShield, where we can literally stop traffic from two VMs that are on the same virtual switch from communicating on the same virtual switch, same host, same subnet, same VLAN from communicating. vShield gives this capability. But when we think about the physical network, and we have a access layer switch, and we have two hosts that are on the same layer 2 network speaking broadcast IP to TCP/IP to one another. How do we stop, or how do we monitor that traffic today in a seamless manner? Well, we have port mirroring. We can set up port mirroring between the two ports, and if there's activity that we can extend that to some, or we have NetFlow and we can extend the data to a third-party security device that can take action when they see traffic. Well, you know what? This requires interaction of the networking team. And when we think about security in depth, it's not just security in depth from a perspective of technology, but from also of separation of duty. So the security team in this particular discussion wanted the ability to have the networking team completely out of the loop. So if they wanted to monitor activity that the networking team, for instance, may be engaged in, they wanted that ability. I struggled with trying to find a solution that's available in the enterprise today to do this physical uh, kind of surveillance without creating some type of overlay, specifically a software overlay, or not just an overlay, having potentially Cisco's ACI has this ability to kind of abstract the network in a way that you can potentially give these programmable interfaces to a security product. So that's an example of an enterprise use case for software defined networking that has nothing to do with kind of the traditional use cases that Google, Facebook, and other companies are attributed to having. That's all great in concept, but we still have to answer the question, practically speaking, is NSX ready for the, not just NSX, but software defined networking in general ready for the enterprise? Well, VMware, and this is the NSX reference, just announced a few big wins for non-techie enterprises. They're saying they're in 3 of the top 5 investment banks. BestBuy.com, Starbucks have implemented NSX. That's a pretty impressive list of companies. I'm not exactly sure what the use cases are. Most of the articles I've read haven't gone in depth into what these companies are using or the scale at which these companies are using the products. But I am excited in the general direction that software defined networking has been going in the enterprise. And maybe it's my bias showing of software defined networking versus OpenStack, but I'm thinking that this is a time that software defined networking is a serious option for even non tech only enterprises. Well, that's this episode of virtualizedgeek.com. You can follow me for more virtualization and networking news at virtualizedgeek at the Twitters, and you can visit me from this webpage, virtualizedgeek.com. Thanks and have a great week.